Hi, how are you? I'm uh, I'm from Holland, and what fascinates me about Holland and especially Amsterdam, that we are a country that is always in front of things. Now we go through a lot of paradox changes, and if you look at Holland, it is a country where feminism and the Me Too and the homosexuals and now always get a voice. We always listen there, and if you see now what is going on, and what absolutely fascinates me is the whole transgender question.
There's a lot of different pushes and pulls and pressures and things that make us end up the way we are. It's not such a simple thing as, oh, because of this, we're like that. Life is never quite that simple. There's lots of things pushing and pulling us in different directions. And one of the things that at the core of it all, and we'll kind of start with the physical aspects, is that the biology that takes a sperm and an egg and creates another human being has lots and lots of uncertainty in it. That's why out of 8 billion people, we're all different. Even twins become different after a while. So everybody's different. Why are we all different? We all look different, we act differently, we see the world differently. Well, it's because there are lots and lots of possibilities about how all of those, the genetic material from the male and female go together, how they go together and what genes get expressed and what don't, and how all that comes about has a huge amount of uncertainty in it. And of course, that's good because that's why we have lots and lots of differences, which are good. We wouldn't want all humans to look alike, think alike, and be similar. It's wonderful that there's this wide spread across the possibilities that give us a huge amount of differences to appreciate. Okay, so that's one thing, and the way statistics works and probability is that and it may not be a nice Gaussian or normal curve that kind of goes up and down and symmetrical, but you'll have a curve of some sort, and this end, this is, well, in statistics they'll call it sigma, which is the standard deviation. It's like a 5 sigma or a 10 sigma. It means it's more unlikely. So most of the stuff is going to happen in the fat part of the curve. But there are things that happen out in the thin part of the curve. And those things are, instead of 75% of the people are like that, out under the third part of the curve, only 1 in 1,000 is like that, or 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 20,000. But these are all possibilities. They're all possibilities of what you can have when that egg and sperm go together. So it's spread out. And everything that can happen does happen, pretty much. Even that stuff that's only 1 in a million, well, there's 8 billion of us. So there's a lot of those 1 in a millions, pop out in the world, because when you have 8 billion people, you've crossed the million line, 8,000 times. So there's a lot of those 1 in a million people out there. So that's the thing. We're born with lots of variation, lots of differences, and everything that can happen does to some extent, just not so often. The 1 in 100 million, well, they're out there too. So that's one thing. People have always come in all sizes and shapes and sorts. And that goes for all parts of us. Our sexuality is no different. There are people born who are almost every little sliver of possibility of ways that they're mixed. Sometimes it's fully female and fully male, and sometimes there's genitals that are both male and female, on the same person. It's just this huge mixture of possibilities. So yes, people come out all sorts of different ways. So that's one thing. The second thing is that our culture, I guess culture is the right word. Our culture has gotten more evolved over time. We are actually improving ourselves. We're lowering our entropy. And we now have a space, and Holland may have more space than the average country, but we now have a space in most places that allows for this, for these differences. If there's no space for those differences, well, then the differences hide themselves. They force themselves to go into the patterns expected. They don't allow themselves to go into the patterns that get taunted and abused. So they are uncomfortable perhaps all their life, that they can never be exactly the way they feel like, but that's better than the alternative. So part of the reason you see all this variation is just probability. It's always been there. Another part that you see more of it now is that we're more accepting now. There's more space now for people to be different than there ever has been before. And that's because we as a species are growing up. We allow more space for people who are different than we are. Well, it's not true everywhere, but a lot more than we had, say, go back 500 years. And you'd find that there was very little space to be different 500 years ago. And if you were very different at all, even in your opinions about the way the world worked or anything else, the punishment was rather severe for not towing the line of beliefs that was dominant at the time. So we have more space. And because we have more space, we have a lot of people who are able to make choices or make decisions. Would I rather be like this or would I rather be like that? I see the advantages and disadvantages of both. And I'm only 10 years old, so I could probably grow into either one of those. Which one would I like? Well, maybe I'll try this one and see how that works out. If that doesn't work out, I'll try the other one. So because we have that space available, there's a lot of people, it's not so much that you're just born this way or born that way. Some are, of course, but our acceptance of people being different is such now that people have more choices. So now this is on the individual side. This is not probability as far as the physical stuff goes. This is choices that people have into how they are. So we're seeing that for the first time. And some people say, oh, if I make this choice and, if I claim that I'm this way and make this choice, I'll get a whole lot of attention. And I need a lot of attention. So I'll go do that just for the attention, and some will do that and some won't. But before, we didn't have that open space where people could even try out those various roles and ways of being and who they are, trying to discover the authentic them down underneath, all the cultural overlays and what the parents think and what the teachers think and what their friends think. Who am I really down there? Well, there's just more space to play with that now and to try things out than there ever has been before. So that's why we see suddenly there's this huge array of people turning up outside the norm.
Yeah.
And that's,
beautiful.
As that's a new thing, there'll be a whole lot of people trying it. As it becomes less of a new thing, there'll be fewer people trying it. So we're probably seeing a peak in that right now. But it's just one of those things that shows us that as a species, we are growing up. We're allowing that kind of diversity into our life. And it's wonderful because diversity is what allows for the optimum amount of growth. The more diverse your experience, the easier it is to grow up. If your experience is very limited, you've never been more than 20 miles away from where you were born, that kind of thing. You have a very limited experience. It's hard to see big pictures when you don't have diversity. And just being around people who are different helps the people who aren't different also grow up. See, it helps everybody grow up, not only the ones that are off, doing something different, but everybody else. Those of us in the middle who are right under that fat part of the curve, we grow from that diversity as well, because we see all the possibilities, and we see that people need to be able to explore the possibilities in their life. What's coming on? What's going to happen? Where am I? And particularly when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, wow, the possibilities are tremendous. It's not a whole lot. As you go through life, these possibilities get shut down and a few more open up. And then these get shut down and a few more open up. And as you go through life, you tend to work yourself into kind of patterns that are a little not really traps, but they give you less and less flexibility, because you've made choices all along the way. All right, I make a choice to be a parent. Well, now that I'm a parent, I got to give up all those choices of running around doing whatever I want, whenever I want to, because I can't do that anymore because I'm a parent. I've got children to take care of, you see. So a whole bunch of choices just disappear, and another whole bunch of choices that have to do with raising a child pop up. So that's the way life is. So yes, these young people have a lot of choices that young people haven't had before. And in some ways, they're just playing with them, exploring them, seeing what it's like, experiencing being out there in a 5 Sigma situation. What's that like? Okay, it brings you a lot of tension, but it brings you some attention that's not so nice as well as nice. And you have to incorporate that into your life and what you're doing and the choices you make. And so all in all, I think it's nice, it's good that we have that much flexibility now. And I think it's just a very good sign that, yeah, we're growing up. That's good. But of course, whenever you have something new, you'll have a lot of people who are very angry and upset and fearful about the new thing. That happens too. And all of that then becomes this pot of choice, and it's very growth inspiring, I think. So I think we'll, in the long run, be better off for having gone through, what we're going through now. And the more we open up, the better.
As long as our procreation and survival is guaranteed, between those things, new things have to happen. And
exactly.
If people can be their selves, their authentic selves, would it be? But I was wondering, Tom, if you're in the stage of an IUOC preparing for a next experience package, so it's also the biology involved that, you're not choosing, well, okay, I want to be a man or a woman next lifetime, but you kind of let it go where it goes.
It depends. Sometimes you do choose your sex, and the system will do that for you. If you say, look, I've had really a hard time with dealing with the responsibilities of being a man, or with the whatever of being a woman, and I've struggled with that. My last couple of lifetimes, I've struggled with femininity or masculinity, and I want to get that straight. I'm working on. It's something I'm working on. Well, sure, you could say next time I want to be female, or I want to be male because I got this thing I'm working on, and then that would happen, and you would end up in a situation where you could work on that thing. But most of the time, for most people, it's not like that. Because what you need is just experience. And the more varied that experience is, the more diversity in the experience, well, the more likely you are to grow. Like I say, you don't want to just keep having the same experience over and over again. You want new challenges, new ways of having to deal with things. All of that helps you grow up. So for the most part, people, when they go to their next life, it's, spin the wheel, let's see what comes up, and I'll deal with it, because I've tried all the obvious things, and okay, I'm all right with all of that. Now let's just, stuff happens and we get to deal with it. That's the way things work. So yes, you can come back on purpose, male or female. Sexuality may be important to what you're trying to learn in a particular part of your life, but for the most part, no, it's not important. Like you say, we're consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have sex. Consciousness doesn't have that kind of differentiation. We're just all beings, but we're playing these avatars. And these avatars do have sex. Not only do they have sex, but that sexuality gives them a whole different set of choices.
Right.
Things they have to do and choices they have to make and things that they're going to experience. So that's good. That just adds, that dimension of sexuality in our avatars just adds to the possibilities of the differences of the things that we can experience. So it's good for us, consciousness, even though we don't come differentiated that way. It's really good that we have those avatars that are, because it makes our life richer.